On today's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast, it was Liverpool who won the first trophy of the season, lifting the Carabao Cup in a 1-0 victory over Chelsea. We're going to be breaking down this very entertaining fixture as Jurgen Klopp's side, hampered by injuries but backed up by youth, were able to get the better of Chelsea, who did put up a very decent fight, and we'll get into that later on. Back in the Premier League, Arsenal continued their fantastic run of form with a 4-1 victory over a fairly hopeless Newcastle side. And Man United suffered their 10th league defeat of the season at the hands of Fulham at Old Trafford. Whilst Aston Villa kept that top 4 fight going with a huge 4-2 victory over Nottingham Forest. And as always, as we always say, stick around for the quiz, more rounds of Guess the Player.
Welcome back. That was Toby with intro, and my name is Mevin. And normally I throw it straight back to Toby, but considering it is my team, Liverpool, which won the Carabao Cup Final, I have to start. And frankly, I'm so happy with the result. I was so nervous going into this game, and I think if you say you weren't nervous, then I don't really think you're human, because in a cup final, absolutely anything can happen. But if we're being honest, going into the game, I did think Liverpool were favourites. Klopp tried to play it down, saying Liverpool weren't, but they absolutely were. But I did have in the back of my mind the fact that Chelsea had a whole week to prepare for this game. Liverpool had Luton Town in midweek, and although they did beat them 4-1, they did have to come back, and it was a game of attrition for the majority of the game. I did think to myself, with the bench that Liverpool had, it was mainly youngsters. The most experienced players on the bench were defenders and the goalkeeper, so I was nervous, but I think the way the game panned out, I do think that Liverpool probably deserved the win on the day. It was very close. I'm surprised that neither team scored during the 490 and then extra time as well. But when it's Liverpool and Chelsea in the cup final, of course it's going to be 0-0 for the majority of the game. But thank God for Virgil van Dijk. And obviously we've got loads to talk about. We got controversies, we got the Van Dijk offside goal, we got the tackles, we got some of the chances, honest to God, that both these sides didn't convert. But if we should probably do this in a chronological order, because there is a lot to talk about. So Toby, I'll bring you in on this. Both teams, they started off very tentatively, didn't they?
Yeah, I think you always get that in cup finals. And as excited as I am for watching cup finals, I always have in the back of my mind that they can just be a bit stale, at least for the first half an hour. Both teams, neither side in cup finals particularly want to be the first one to pounce, be the first one to give the other opportunity for space in behind, space beyond that midfield, and just trying to suss each other's game plans out. You can expect the managers to tweak things based on the opposition, knowing that it's going to be those very, very slight moments in games that's going to win you the trophy in the end of the day. So there was a little bit of that, but then all of a sudden, it just seemed to completely click into gear, and Chelsea really got going towards the end of that first half. They had some good chances, and I think Liverpool answered that with some really good chances of their own. And that first half, there could have been a couple goals in it, certainly, if not for the performance of both keepers. I think Petrovic and Kelleher both had really good games throughout the whole game, not just in that first half as well, combining for 19 saves. I think it was Kelleher with 9 and Petrovic with 10. So some really good chances, but they kept that scoreline down. And going into the break at 0-0, I think the main talking point that we have to sort of touch on is that Caicedo challenge on Gravenberch, which saw him come off, stretch it off as well, which always makes it look a lot worse. As a Liverpool fan, when you were watching, did you think it was a foul? And also afterwards, now on some reflection, do you still think, or whatever your opinion is, I'm assuming you're going to say it's a red card just because you're a Liverpool fan, which is maybe wrong with me. But yeah, what did you think in the moment, and what do you think after reflecting on it following the game?
I'm going to surprise you actually, mate. I didn't think it was a red card, and even on reflection and seeing the stills and the slow-mos, I still don't think it's a red. I think it is borderline, but for me, it's unfortunate because obviously Gravenberch gets injured, which it feels like, not another one. And that kind of fueled my anger at the time at seeing the challenge, but I still didn't think it was a red card. Any higher, and I would say it would be a red card. And to be fair, there are a few contentious challenges we're going to have to talk about on the podcast this week, but red card, not for me. I think what was annoying was the fact that the referee didn't even give a foul, and he didn't even give a yellow card, because I think that's a definite foul, obviously, and I think that's a definite card. You can argue what colour it should be, but I think when Caicedo is the defensive midfielder for Chelsea, he's going to have a big part to play in the remainder of the game, making tackles, breaking up play, And if their defensive midfielder gets a yellow card, then that immediately inhibits what he can and cannot do for the rest of the game. And it actually gives Liverpool an edge when they counter, when they attack, because Caicedo's got to be very, very careful, unless he gets himself sent off. So I think that was more my frustration on it. I'm assuming you didn't see it as a red card?
No, I honestly thought exactly the same as you. It was a yellow card challenge for me, and one that I understand VAR, they can't obviously overturn just simple fouls and yellow cards. It has to be like a serious piece of foul play. There has to be a red card and a clear error in that essence for them to give it. So yeah, I don't think the challenge itself was bad enough. It felt almost like he was trying to sort of shield Gravenberch away from the ball, and his sort of standing foot made the challenge. So I don't think there was any sort of malintent or maliciousness or recklessness in the way he was placing his feet. I genuinely think he was just almost trying to get in between Gravenberch and the ball. His foot ended up in a bad position. Wasn't awfully high, wasn't showing loads of studs. Yeah, so for me, really, really unfortunate to see Gravenberch get injured, but I think it was just a yellow card and a foul at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think, you and me, I think we're quite sensible podcast hosts. We're not going to overegg it if it's not the case. But I do think that in the second half, that Van Dijk offside goal, I'm going to need your opinion on this one as well, because for me, I don't think it was offside, and I've seen it again and again. And obviously, Wataru Endo is in an offside position when Andy Robertson puts a ball into the box. However, I've seen so many corners and free kicks where there's a man on the goalkeeper, and I just think to myself, every single week we should be seeing offsides way more than we do if Endo was deemed to be interfering with play. Because I just thought to myself, Van Dijk's header, it's such a great run and header with the pace and power that Van Dijk has that there's no way Chilwell, who's actually the closest to him when he heads the ball in, or any other Chelsea defender, in this case Colwill, which is deemed to be what Endo's deemed to have blocked his path. I just don't think anyone's getting into it. So what did you think on that one?
Yeah, it's a really difficult one because they aren't given very often. These sorts of situations, these offside calls are not given very often. And I think that is, for me, the problem that others aren't given, which causes the controversy in this. Because by the letter of the law, Endo has interfered with play. He has interfered with a defender who was probably trying to mark Van Dijk. Whether he would have got there or not, it ultimately doesn't matter. He was interfering with the play from an offside position. So looking at the rule book, as objectively as possible, it was offside and probably should have been ruled out. But I do completely understand the frustration that they're not given elsewhere, so why was it given here? And that's a really, really difficult discussion, and one that I think comes up a lot in these sorts of decisions, and I think that also came up in that Caicedo foul, especially from a Liverpool perspective, when we had that Curtis Jones red card earlier in the season, almost an identical situation where the foul was very, very similar. It wasn't malicious, it wasn't reckless. Curtis Jones gets a red card, Caicedo gets away without it even being a yellow card, and it's that difference between these situations that causes this sort of uproar and these arguments. So I think in this case it was rightly ruled off. Will the referees now be looking a lot more at these things from set piece plays, like you say? Obviously from a corner, it can't be offside, but from sort of deep free kicks being played into the box, are they going to start looking at these more? And I can imagine they will because of the discussion that's happened following it. But yeah, I think it was right to be ruled out, even if the consistency isn't there, and that's just been a huge problem recently.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, I completely forgot about the Curtis Jones red card. I think it's been so far in the season now that I can kind of forget about it and move on. But he brought it back, so now I'm wound up again. But yeah, I think, it was a shame, but I'm glad, thankfully, from a Liverpool fan's perspective, that Liverpool did win the game, and then not everyone at the end is talking about that as being the defining moment. Because if Liverpool had lost the cup final, everyone would have been like, that goal should have stood, what's going on? And I think even Klopp at the end of the game said that the two teams were at a great level, but the referee wasn't, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I don't want to be talking about referees. I just want to be talking about football, and I'm just kind of sick and tired of it, to be honest. But we should talk about the rest of the game, because in 90 minutes, I don't know how neither of these sides didn't score a goal. I think Cody Gakpo had a chance for the header, which hit the post. Conor Gallagher had a chance, which hit the post. I think, like you mentioned it right at the beginning in your intro, I mean, Kelleher and Petrovic were just absolutely incredible. I mean, the fact that both Liverpool had an XG of 2.05 and Chelsea an XG of 1.46. I think the keepers were the man of the matches in the game, apart from Virgil van Dijk. Because I think not only was he on the same level, I think he was the next level up. And I think it was a perfect captain's performance. I think he absolutely led that very young and inexperienced Liverpool side by the end of it. And the fact that he got a winning goal as well, I think he was absolutely captain fantastic. And I know some people will say that, it doesn't mean much. It's just the Carabao Cup. It's just a Mickey Mouse trophy. But I think in Klopp's last season, to get a trophy, and not only that, but in the way we won it, with the squad that we have, with the players that from the academy that came up in, that were starting and then came on off the bench, I do agree that I think this is one of the best ever trophies that we've had under Jurgen Klopp, and that's saying something really.
Yeah, especially in the circumstances and the context it has come. I can imagine there would have been a lot of sort of worry in the coaching room, in the sort of medical team going into the game. The amount of players that you were missing, you're looking at sort of 6 starters, possibly even more if you actually count them up, which is absolutely crazy. And looking at your bench compared to some of the players on Chelsea's bench who obviously had Nkunku and Mudryk, and you're bringing on players 18, 19, almost for their Liverpool debuts is crazy. And like you said, for Klopp to have the trust to bring those players on, despite it obviously being an extra time and there being tired legs, you wouldn't be surprised if there were a lot of other managers, a lot of other clubs who would have thought we need to keep these more experienced players on even if they're tired. Klopp knows that bringing on some fresh legs, no matter the experience, and trusting those players to be able to do a good enough job to get that game over the line and to find the winner was a really, really good ending, as you say, and a really good trophy for Klopp to have towards the end of his reign at Liverpool.
Yeah, and hopefully there's plenty more to come. But you know what? Quadruple is on, but I'm not going to get too excited because I think I can hear you laughing. Because I think, if we're being honest, the trophies are not the trophies. Sorry, the injuries. I was still so happy we won. The injuries are piling up, and I think we got Southampton in midweek. Not Southampton. Yes, Southampton in midweek in the FA Cup, and then we've got Nottingham Forest away in the league. Then we've got the 2 legs in the Europa League, which is in between that is Manchester City at home, and we've got Everton just before the international break. And I'll be honest, this is a big 3 weeks before that March international break because, it's all well and good talking about, the quadruple being on. But in 3 weeks' time, we could have all fallen apart because the injuries have been so severe. And I think why this final was special because, this wouldn't happen in a normal situation, but it did. But it's unlikely to happen again, which is why I'm very happy with the result on the weekend, absolutely buzzing. But I'm just looking towards the future, and the future is worrying. But talking about the future, we've got to talk about Chelsea and their performance in this game. Because I thought, they did play well, to talk about them being the £1 billion bottle jobs, as Gary Neville described in commentary. It's all fun to make fun of Chelsea fans. But the team played well on the day, but they didn't get it over the line. What was missing from their performance, do you think?
To be honest, for me, I don't really think that much. I think Gary Neville calling them the £1 billion bottle jobs is very, very harsh, and I think it's almost narrative driven and nothing to do with the game at all, because I think they put up a really, really good fight. And Chelsea themselves in this final, they had a younger average age than Liverpool. They had an average age of 23.9 compared to Liverpool's 25.8, and I think it's really, really harsh to call them bottle jobs. And I know because of the money they've spent, we do expect them to perform better in the league, to be picking up more points than they are, and to just ultimately be performing better than they are. But they still have a really young squad. They've gone through a lot of change at the club recently, and I think this game and getting to this final is definitely a highlight for them. And I think they did play really, really well. And on another day, they could have won. They had some good chances. Cole Palmer hit the post. We saw Gallagher very, very narrowly miss, just hitting the post and the inside of the post at that. That could have certainly gone in. And they had some really good moves in this game. They had that right-sided attack that we see where Jackson's pulling out to the right, Palmer's finding him beyond the defence, beyond that Liverpool high line when they're pushing up, and Sterling coming across and being the striker at times. And they had a number of those moves again, which they kept from the City game the other week, where they also played really well against a top quality side, and they are playing very well in sort of large chunks of games recently. And I think on the other side, defensively as well, they were pretty solid. I think Gusto had a good game, as well as Disasi, and as we mentioned previously, Petrovic, I think, performed very, very well. So I think, especially for a cup final, I don't think much more could have been asked for Chelsea. As we say, maybe just not. I wouldn't even say switching off for that last corner where Van Dijk scored, because it was a really good run and a really good header. But if that hadn't have gone in and they would have gone on to win in penalties, I'm sure we would have heard a lot more praise for Chelsea, and not less praise for Liverpool, certainly. But I think we would have heard that obviously their squad was diminished, and it feels like it's been a really good achievement for Liverpool to win this final because of that. But as we said, if that last few minutes of the game had gone differently and Chelsea went on penalties, I think we would have talked about how well they played for large chunks of the game.
Yeah, a game of fine margins, isn't it? I do have to question though Pochettino, because like we've said, I mean, the upturn form in recent weeks has been really impressive. But I think his comments after the game were really worrying about the fact that at full time the players thought to themselves, right, we can get ourselves to penalties, because they felt like their legs were gone and a bit tired. And I just found that very confusing, because you can say that as a fan. It's something else when you hear your manager coming out with it, because game state is so important, because although it was 0-0, it was a cup final, everyone's on edge a little bit. Chelsea were in the ascendancy in the last 10 to 15 minutes of normal time. So the fact that Liverpool had more possession, had more shots in the entirety of extra time, and individually in both halves of extra time as well, I thought was incredibly worrying. I didn't know why Chelsea backed off, because I thought if Chelsea had went for it, I think they would have won the game. I think they would have won in extra time. They didn't need penalties, if I'm being honest. They were the team ahead. They were the team in the ascendancy. They were having the better chances. They were testing Kelleher. They were testing the Liverpool defence. And if you think about it, Konate also had to come off in extra time, and Kwanzaa had to come on. It was there for them to go in and win. And I think mentally, the scar this much put on the Chelsea side. And I don't know if they were already mentally scarred because they lost to Liverpool 4-1 so comprehensively at Anfield. But I just thought to myself, what are you doing? If I'm being honest, you're giving it to Liverpool to go in and win. And that's why I was just really confused by that Chelsea performance, especially in the extra time and the last 10 minutes, because I thought they could have gone and won it. But I'm really not sure where Chelsea go from here. I don't think sacking Pochettino is the right answer, obviously. There's no point sacking him mid-season. They're still in the FA Cup, but I do worry that they're going to lose to Leeds in midweek. Leeds, who, off the back of a fantastic win against Leicester in the Championship, fighting for promotion themselves. But Chelsea, I mean, yes, they lost, unless it was fine margins, but it's not great signs going forward, is it?
No, especially for their confidence, as you're saying, Poch making those comments after. It's that whole squad feeling that they're not able to go and beat this weakened Liverpool side, despite even playing really, really well in the game before, is very strange, especially when you're looking at that back line. Like you've said, you've got Tsimikas has come on. I think it's Roberts, I think his name, who came on for Bradley. And then Kwanzaa and Van Dijk. I feel like the attackers should have the confidence to be able to drive those players, to think we can go and win this here. We have the quality to do so. And I think they probably do. There's just that lack of belief. The season has not gone well so far. It's improving very, very slightly week on week, but then the same problems seem to be cropping up. And as you've said, Leeds midweek, who are on a really good run of form, they're playing very, very well in the Championship. You wouldn't be surprised if following this fantastic cup final performance, they go and just throw it away against Leeds and put out a poor performance, because that consistency has not been there all season at all. And I don't know what their goal is for the rest of the season as well. I think that's something that I think will be in the back of the players' minds and the back of Pochettino's mind. They are way too far off getting top four. They could get a late surge for Europa League and Conference League, but I think for a club of Chelsea's side, even to have those goals, it just doesn't feel right and is not motivating enough for a club that side, which I think sort of is pushing them down as well. There's not really that motivation. They don't look super hungry, the squad. So I think there's a lot of work still to be done in the summer to get those goals higher and to really try and push for them. And I think that will be good for them. But yeah, the rest of the season, it just feels like waiting for the end of the season almost at times.
Yeah, very sobering times for Chelsea fans, but some fans who are in absolute jubilation at the moment are Arsenal as they beat Newcastle United at home 4-1. And now Arsenal, I think they've got the best goal difference in the league. I think in the 6 Premier League games in 2024, Arsenal have only allowed shots of with an XG of 1.88. They've scored 20 plus goals. And I just think to myself, Arsenal are in a fantastic vein of form. And frankly, as a neutral, I'm sick and tired of talking about how amazing Arsenal are. So Toby, you can take it away.
Yeah, I'm certainly not sick and tired of it. I'm absolutely loving it at the moment. I could talk about Arsenal all day. So yeah, more than happy to. Yeah, really, really complete performance again against a Newcastle side who I think it's fair to say have struggled in recent weeks. It maybe doesn't feel like as big as like a win as it could have been because of Newcastle's struggles, especially defensively in recent weeks. And in this game, they looked very, very poor defensively. It was quite easy for us most of the time. But talking about Arsenal and how they set up in recent weeks, we have really, really changed system. I think in the midfield, it feels since Zinchenko's injury, when he is fit and playing at left back, he is the one who is always inverting and sitting alongside our six, which has normally been Rice. Where, as in recent weeks, whether it has been Rice or in this case Jorginho sitting in the six, whoever is inverting or coming along at times to support that midfield, it completely changes depending on where the ball is on the pitch, what phase of the game we're in, and it's a tactic that I've really, really liked and I think is working so well. We saw in this game Jorginho sitting, and if the ball was on the right-hand side, sort of with White and Saka combining, we would occasionally see Kivior coming in and inverting. We would also sometimes see Rice pulling back and sitting alongside the six. And when the ball was on the opposite side, White would potentially be the one inverting. And there were even times in this game when it was Havertz I saw dropping in, sitting alongside Jorginho when Odegaard wanted to be the one pushing up and being the highest up on the pitch. So it seems like this sort of quite rigid midfield structure that I think we had at times with Zinchenko, Jorginho, or Zinchenko, Rice, Havertz and Odegaard forming that box midfield just feels really, really fluid, and it feels like that positional play that I think Arteta has picked up from Guardiola has almost pushed out on it. It feels more reminiscent. I don't know if it's the right term, but almost more total football. It feels like whoever is in that position by chance is just taking it up, and it's given our midfield unit and our attacking unit so much more fluidity. And I think with Newcastle's defensive struggles and their midfield, especially in this game, not sure whether to press, not sure whether to sit right back on the defence, we were just able to play around them so easily. And that is where the game was really won, was in that midfield, and it was just a complete domination for 90% of the game.
Yeah, I really like your midfield at the moment, the balance especially. There's just something about the left-footedness of Odegaard and Havertz, which are just, and Zinchenko when he's fit actually as well, credit to him, which is just so silky to watch, and I just really like watching this Arsenal side at the moment, even though we are competing against you directly for the league. But I just think, Arsenal absolutely dominated this game, and like you said, Newcastle are in a terrible run of form at the moment. There are some noises coming out of St. James's Park, which are just like not sure what to do, not sure what to think about this team and manager. But I'll be honest, I think in this game, I think you can just say Arsenal were phenomenal, and I think that they absolutely were. They have been so far in 2024, and credit to them. It goes to show amazing what a little break and training sessions in some warm weather can really do for Arsenal. And I think one thing, you're talking about open play, the set pieces, they've really, really impressed me. And I think it's one where so many teams this season have been focused on set pieces. I think we've seen more set piece goals than ever before, more teams conceding set piece goals. But I just think our set pieces are just so good. And it wasn't necessarily for the first goal for Arsenal, any particular player. Obviously, Gabriel makes himself a nuisance, gets a flick on, sorry. But then there's Bobman with the own goal. Very unlucky, I'll be completely honest. But I think Arsenal thoroughly deserved it. And even if it wasn't for that fact, I think Arsenal would have gone on to score 1, 2, 3, 4 more, even though Newcastle scored the own goal. But then Havertz, and then Saka, and then Kivior, all the left footers. I just thought to myself, do you know what? Arsenal are absolutely phenomenal. And it is one now where a lot of people expected weren't expecting a 3-horse race for the title. We're expecting a 2 and one of the 3 teams to drop off. And a lot of people were expecting it to be Arsenal. But I've actually seen no sign of that this season, I'll be honest. Even when they're having the down spell, I didn't write off Arsenal because you just know they can do fantastic things. I think one player in particular I want you to focus on, Toby, is Saka. 25 matches played, 13 goals, 7 assists. He's got 20 goal returns in the Premier League this season, only 5 less than the whole of last season. And he's world class, isn't he?
I don't know. I hate that question. I always find world class such a strange definition, and people always have different definitions of it. So for me, I actually in my definition of world class, I feel like it's top 5 in the world in each position, and I wouldn't say Saka's quite there yet. As much as I love him, he is a fantastic player. He is so key to Arsenal. He has so much talent. He's only 22, and I have no doubt that he will probably be one of not just world class, but probably one of the best players in the world in 4 or 5 years' time. Still learning, still getting better, just not quite world class for me. And in that, there's been that Saka Foden debate at the moment, loads of saying, oh, who's better? I don't think either of them are world class just yet, and that's no discredit to them. I just think they're both very young, and they still got a little way to go to match those sort of top tier players. But yeah, a really good season, and it's come off the back of quite a slow start to the season. I think a lot of Arsenal fans saying that he needed a rest. He had been playing a lot of minutes. He looked quite tired. He wasn't combining as well with Odegaard and White, and he just looked a little bit sluggish for the first 5-10 games of the season. Maybe he was still scoring some goals, but not quite the same creative output, it felt like. Whereas now he seems to be in a really hot run of form, playing so well, really coming inside a lot more and finding a lot more space, which has been really good to see. And it just seems exactly like it was at the start of last season, where he was combining so well with White, providing a lot of support, overlapping Odegaard in that sort of half space, and he just keeps cropping up in these fantastic positions. And that's where I think his best asset is he almost has that striker's instinct, but from the wide position in a strange place. He knows when is the right time to shoot. He knows when the right time is to cross. And yeah, just keeps getting better and better. And you can see when he has that ball and he's standing up on a defender, and normally 2 defenders, a lot of teams do double up on Saka, he's still able to deliver game after game.
Okay, I've got to disagree with you, because I think Saka is world class. Because just basing it on your own definition of world class, name me 5 right wingers better than Saka.
It's a good question. I'd probably say someone like Bernardo Silva, I feel like is the level that Saka would need to get to be defined as world class for me.
Is he a right winger?
I think he normally plays off the right, Silva. I'd say that's Silva's best position for me, is playing on like the right of a midfield. And I just feel like it's that level. Whether there are like definitely 5 exact players better than him, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like someone like Salah, like sort of looking at Salah, Bernardo Silva, trying to name some other players. It just feels like he's not quite there yet. I think it takes a lot for a player of that age to be classed as world class already.
Now, that's fine. That's your opinion, but I'll disagree, and I'll say Saka is world class. I think in the Premier League, I think he's the second best right winger behind Salah. It's just so annoying that he's got Salah ahead of him. And to be honest, if Mohamed Salah ever left Liverpool and you ask me who do you want to replace him, I'd be like Bukayo Saka. It'll be easy for me. So I think he's easily top 5 in the world. I mean, maybe you've got Rodrigo at Real Madrid, maybe Ousmane Dembele at PSG. I mean, I'm trying to think, but I really, maybe at Bayern Munich you got Gnabry and Sane, depending on who plays on the right when they're in form. But honestly, I'd say right wingers, I'd say he's in the top 5 for me, and I think he's world class. But anyway, for Arsenal, the next 5 games, the whole month of March is going to be massive. You've got Sheffield United away, Brentford at home, Porto in the second leg of the Champions League at home, trying to overturn a 1-0 loss, Chelsea at home, and then Manchester City away. How crucial is the month of March for Arsenal's whole season?
Yeah, it feels like that City game is the big one. To be honest, reading those fixtures out, I think they are all wins, especially the 2 toughest fixtures being Porto and Chelsea, both being home fixtures. We look like a different animal at home. We look so much more comfortable. And the only away fixture in that period being Sheffield United, which at the moment isn't the toughest and should be a fairly comfortable win. So if we can get those 4 games in, hopefully win them all, which I think we're more than capable of, going into that City game. Following City, they've got a few sort of tricky fixtures coming up. It could come at the right time, hopefully, just if we can keep things going, because that's gonna be the key one. That's gonna be potentially late enough in the season and the game between two of the three title challengers that could decide those last few games in the title race. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, and just to finish off on Newcastle, an XG of 0.16 in this game. Lovely goal from Joe Willock against his former club with a looping header over David Raya, but 3 shots in the whole game, 2 on target, no big chances. It was a very poor display, and even though they're not in great form, you expected a little bit better from them, didn't we?
Yeah, we still expect them to produce a fairly decent attacking output. They're still scoring a large number of goals recently, despite conceding a lot as well. And it just felt like there was no sort of belief that they were going to go and score. I think they were worried about going up one end and conceding at the other by the sounds of things. The midfield looked completely lost. They didn't know when to press. They didn't know when to sit. There were huge gaps between their midfield and their attack, and then huge gaps between their midfield and defence at times. And the attack was getting almost no support. I think Isak got no service. Gordon as well, I think, tried his best to get a couple runs going, try and break through the Arsenal defence, but with just no luck. There was not much going on and not much game plan, which I think is quite worrying, especially in a big fixture like that. You do have to go in with a game plan that players need to know whether they're going to sit and try and counter, or if they are going to push up and press, because having that in between gives no belief into the players and just allowed Arsenal to play around them.
Yeah, I've seen some Newcastle United fans say that, maybe it's done for them in the league and they should focus on the FA Cup because they've got Blackburn Rovers at home on Tuesday. And I do think to myself that's a little bit premature and a little bit pessimistic, because we know how good this Newcastle side can be. Obviously, maybe they can't catch the Champions League places, but definitely they could be in your chance for Europe next season. They're only 2 points off Brighton, and next week they've got a massive game at home against Wolves. But I definitely think they maybe won't be able to catch the likes of Man United, who are 7 points ahead of them. And the reason why they're 7 points ahead and not 10 is because they lost at home 2-1 to Fulham. And frankly, I'll be honest, I think Fulham were the better side. Is that how you saw it as well?
Yeah, definitely in that first half, Fulham were fantastic. They made some really, really good chances and at times countered very, very well. I think United did start to come back into the game, as we saw in that sort of last half an hour, but they left it way too late, and Fulham were the better side for the majority of the game. And there was one, I think, key moment that I really noticed that summed up, I think, this performance was when Fulham had a break from Man United's corner. The keeper came out and I think he punched it out, and it was Lukic, who I think had a fantastic game. He was my man of the match for me. I think he was superb. He knocked over Rashford's head and ran through, and just the way that Rashford went for the challenge and was jogging back so half-heartedly whilst Lukic and Fulham players were absolutely bombing down the other end of the pitch. And there were a few United players coming back as well, but it just felt so flat, especially in that first half. No commitment, no passion, and it was the complete opposite from Fulham, who were really, really strong, and they believed that they could go there and get a result.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Rashford, because I actually had him in my notes to talk about him, because one week he looks like Mbappe and then next week he looks like he should be in the Championship. There is no in-between with Marcus Rashford, and I do feel slightly sorry for him because of the fact that the injuries with United means that Højlund is out, and so someone's got to start up front because Martial is permanently injured. Also, you had like Lindelof starting a left back instead of Luke Shaw, who's also out injured now. Again, another massive blow. But I do think to myself, Rashford is 26, but he's been around for a long time now, and the fact that we know he can play up front and he's better out on the left, but to still put in that bad of a performance, I think I don't understand why 1 week he's amazing, 1 week he's not. It just reeks of inconsistency, yes, which is a whole Man United issue, but you expect more from him. And I know like he often gets beaten with a stick because he's a homegrown player and everyone looks to him for like some sort of a performance to lead the line and lead the side. But I do think to myself that next time you don't have a striker available, just keep him out on the left, because he can do a job. And I think that also impacted Man United because the whole front three, well, 2 of the positions were changed. Rashford, I know, was still in the side, but then because he played a different position, meant that it wasn't really the same chemistry. And then Garnacho was moved to the left. You had who's the young player that came in, Forson playing his first game out at right wing, and I felt sorry for Forson. Oh God, I feel so sorry for him. On his debut, he had to come into the side, and when you think about it, you had the likes of Ericsson on the bench. Obviously, he can't play in the wing, but maybe he could have played midfield, and Bruno Fernandes could have gone out to the right. You had Ahmed Diallo on the bench. You had Anthony on the right on the bench as well. God, Anthony feels like such a waste of money, but it just feels like it was just there for Fulham to win today, because this Man United side were all over the place. And thankfully, I mean, to be fair, it could have been worse for Man United, if I'm being honest, because should we talk about it now? The Harry Maguire challenge, was that a record for you?
It was certainly worse than the Caicedo challenge, in my opinion. There was a lot more sort of force going into the challenge. It did seem a little bit reckless, but I think it was probably the right decision. I think a red felt a little bit harsh in that instance. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I agreed as well on that one. I did look at the Maguire challenge before the Liverpool game, and I did think to myself, like after the Liverpool game, that, yeah, do you know what, they're both the same. You can't say one's yellow and one's red. You got to, or the other vice versa. You got to say they're both either yellow, both red, and for me, they're both yellow. I did put a little bit doubt into my mind, because I think if he's trying to go for the ball, maybe flick it with your toes or your laces, but the fact that he stood on it, I was maybe thinking about it, but I did think to myself, no, it's a yellow. But yeah, Fulham were absolutely amazing in this game, and the better side. I think there's been 18 games where they haven't won at Old Trafford, and now to finally do it, I think they thoroughly deserved it. And do you know what? Marco Silva, we don't give him enough credit, because the way he got his players playing in this game, being on the front foot, the better side, and the fact that his substitutions as well, because when he brought in the Adama Traore, he caused absolute havoc. And I thought to myself, if you're comparing one team who's chasing for the Champions League and one team who's not, it looked like it was Fulham.
Yeah, I feel like I've been quite harsh on Marco Silva recently, especially when we were discussing at the start of the season how we thought Fulham were going to be performing, and they did overperform by quite a decent amount last season in terms of the expected stats. And I think statistics wise, we would have expected them to finish around 15th, 16th, and they were up. I think they finished 10th, maybe 9th last season. And I think we were predicting them to fall off. We weren't expecting the way they were playing to be sustainable, but it is. And they have carried on. They've got a really strong squad. They have seemed to have brought in some really good players. I think Muniz has been fantastic in sort of stepping in whilst Jimenez has been out. He's on a really hot run of form. And as I said previously, Lukic, who they signed in the January transfer window, I can't say I've ever heard of him, but it didn't look like Palhinha wasn't in the side. He played that good, and I absolutely love Palhinha, so that says a lot. He had 3 tackles, 4 interceptions, no dribbled past, 5 out of 6 ground duels, and 2 out of 2 aerial duels. He was an absolute rock, and he was very, very good at carrying the ball forward for Fulham at times as well when they were breaking, as I mentioned on that first half chance where they broke from the Man United corner. Looks like an absolute bargain for only 8 million, and I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on him for the rest of the season. And keep my eye on Fulham, as you've said. They didn't just go and snatch a win. They may have got a last-second winner, but throughout the whole game, they were so, so good. I think Iwobi played really, really well as well. He did miss a couple chances in the first half, but I think he probably was the one creating them as well. So fair play to him for that. And yeah, just they keep doing it, Fulham. They keep going, and I wouldn't be surprised again now, seeing how they have played recently, seeing the number of points they're still picking up, they will be comfortably mid-table again, I think.
Yeah, that's the only thing. They can't find some consistency, because they've had a fantastic performance like they have against Man United, but then, they'll probably go on and lose the next game, which, reeks of mid-table. But I think, to be honest, I think Fulham, I think we were critical of them in the start of the season. I think rightly so, in all honesty. But I think, losing the likes of Mitrovic, there was talk about Marco Silva leaving. The fact that they were able to, be comfortably mid-table, have decent performances against the bigger sides like this, give the fans, even despite the fact that you are mid-table, something to cheer about. They had their cup run in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup and lost, unfortunately, to Liverpool. Obviously, I think they're still in the FA Cup as well. So, I mean, it's a lot to be positive. I mean, a lot of times you're mid-table and you can sometimes be bored of being mid-table. But I think despite that, I think Fulham fans do have some things to be happy about. They're not good. They're not uber consistent. Because I think, like we said, Iwobi had a fantastic game, but next week he could have an absolute howler. But I think that's just the kind of player he is. But I think there's lots to be happy and a lot to be excited for if you are a Fulham fan. I just wanted to talk about finally on Man United, because yes, they've been on a bit of a run. They've been the form team in the league at the moment. But then, another defeat that brings them kind of crashing down. It does feel like when they win, they're super high. When they lose, they're super low. And I think if they were to get Champions League football this season, do you see this team progressing next season? Because often we see in Man United and the managers that they've had since Sir Alex Ferguson that, 2 years is about the minimum time that they get given, apart from David Moyes. It's really the third season, which is the telling one. What do you say you had a crystal ball and you would predict what happens next season? Do you think this United side would be in the Champions League comfortably, or do you think it would be one where Eddie Howe would be getting sacked?
It's a really tough one, and I think a lot is dependent on the transfer window because they need to improve that squad. They need to bring in some exciting young players. They need to bring some passion and some energy back into that side. I think they could do with maybe 3 or 4 pretty decent signings. And by the way, the sort of club acquisition is going with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, you wouldn't be surprised if they get that. And I think Ten Hag is going to get at least another full season unless things go miraculously bad. He is a good manager. He does have quite a clear style of play. Whether it's the most exciting, not too sure. I don't think there's many other options better on the market at the moment. So yeah, I just think they need to bolster out that squad a little bit. It feels like when United lose, it feels like it's way worse because when they lose, they play really badly, which sounds like the most basic, stupid thing to say. But a lot of the bigger and better sides, I think, have a really good game and they do just sort of end up being quite unlucky sometimes. For Man United's case, it never feels like they're unlucky. It always feels like they deserve to lose. And I think that's why there's always quite a lot of reaction around it, because they can win and play well and play decently, and then they lose and play really, really badly. It's difficult for them to go on a run where they keep playing well, but they just get a bit unlucky and maybe draw or lose sometimes. So I think there's some work to do in sort of these strange sort of mid-table losses, because they do seem to play okay in the big game sometimes, which is positive. It's just trying to work out these sort of kinks in the games which you would predict to be easier for them. So yeah, for me, a little bit of work to do, and I think they can get back up there next season, which sounds strange considering we've just kind of been slating them off for a while. But yeah, not too far off, but yeah. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when they win, it kind of papers over the cracks of how not good the performance was. But when they lose, I think it just emphasizes how bad it was. And I think, obviously, like every other team, they've been helped by injuries. But I think their inability to cope, even when they only have a couple of players out, I think is telling. And I think it is hard for them because of the fact that a lot of their injuries have been in defence. So Varane, Martinez, Shaw. I can't remember the last time they had the entire back five fully fit and available. I think if they were to get them back, I think it would be a massive boost. But it doesn't seem like Shaw is going to be back for this season. And Martinez has picked up another recurring injury of the same one he had a surgery for. So I think it is going to be tough for them to get top 4. I do hope Erik ten Hag gets the time next season, because I would like to see what he does do with the backing, and I think more importantly the correct backing, because I think they have spent money, but it's if they spend the right transfer value on the players that they need, then I think that'll be interesting, because then, like with the likes of Anthony, the players who come in won't have that pressure of a massive price tag. But Man United are chasing a side who at the moment are picking up some crucial wins as in the race for the top 4, and it is Aston Villa as they beat Nottingham Forest 4-2 at Villa Park. And Aston Villa absolutely soared into a lead in this game, didn't they?
Yeah, it was such a nice goal, that first one. Really enjoyed watching that. I think it was classic Aston Villa, bombing forward, finding the space so quickly. A lovely bit of skill from Bailey to knock it round. I think it was Murillo, who is a really, really good defender, as we have touched on. So lovely little touch round, perfect pass into Watkins and an easy finish. And just a brilliant start and classic Villa. And I think it was the same for, I can't remember if it was Luiz's first or second goal. It was very, very similar. A pullback and an easy finish. And they make it look really, really easy, Aston Villa. They always look like they have so much space. They move it on so quickly when they're sort of surrounded by players. They don't really gamble at sort of taking loads of players on if there's loads around them. They will move it so quickly and find as much space as possible. And I don't know how they do it so well. It seems so seamless. I think it must be hours and hours and hours of practice in sort of training and doing things like keep ball, because the way they can just tear teams apart by moving it so quickly and completely overloading them with players and taking those high risks is just so fun to watch. And I think this game was a perfect example of it, ending with an XG of over 3.5, four goals overall, and all the attackers, I think, for Villa in this game had fantastic games and just linked up really well.
Yeah, I think that's why Unai Emery is such a fantastic manager, because not only are these good players, but he can give them consistency and he can also improve them. And I think we're seeing these players play at their absolute maximum every single game. And I think for Nottingham Forest, it was a bad first 45 minutes. I mean, I wasn't surprised at half-time because I think Nuno, he subbed off 3 players at half-time, didn't he? I think he took up both the centre-backs and Taiwo Awoniyi. I can understand the centre-backs. I didn't quite understand Taiwo. Hopefully he isn't a knock because he's crucial for Nottingham Forest. But I think the fact that both Murillo and Felipe came off, I was not surprised, because we've been talking about Murillo, I think as recently as the last podcast, I think you were saying how he's a really good player, and he is. But he is still very young, and I think Aston Villa absolutely tore them apart. And I'll be honest, after a couple of games, I'm already convinced on Sells, the goalkeeper, and I think it's another one where they've had an howler, and I don't think he's good enough. Add that to Vlachodimos and Matt Turner, and I think they've got someone else. I think they maybe got Wayne Hennessy as well on the books, and I just think to myself, I don't think any of them are good enough, and it's massive worries defensively for Nottingham Forest, because they can score goals, and that's what really frustrating, because with the first goal they get just at the end of the first half, in the 5th minute of added time, they give themselves a bit of a lifeline, but they just shoot themselves in the foot later on in the second half, and that's why it's so worrying. Because if you break down that first goal for Nottingham Forest, the fact that Niakhaté gets goal, but Taiwo Awoniyi, the big aerial threat for Nottingham Forest, is at the back post, completely unmarked and free, and the fact that Niakhaté can put the ball into the back of the net and then tap in a yard away from goal is criminal defending from Aston Villa. Not something you quite expect to see from an Unai Emery side. But I thought to myself, they've given themselves a chance, and in the 48th minute, 3 minutes into the second half, they do it. They get themselves a fantastic goal by Morgan Gibbs-White, chips it over Martinez, and a lovely assist by Divock Origi. And you think to yourself, yes, you can do it. But then they just shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, do you want to talk about the 4th Villa goal? Because, they're just so bad from Nottingham Forest's perspective.
Yeah, it was one mistake and Villa pounced on it. It was a really good press from them, from John McGinn, which is exactly what we expect. One of the hardest workers in the league, one of the best players in the league this season, I think is fair to say, in terms of maybe expectations that we had at the start. He's been phenomenal and carried it on. And he led that press, won the ball super high, and when you win the ball that high, that's obviously the game plan. It's just so easy from there. You're at the edge of the box already. The defenders themselves aren't expecting it, and then it's just a couple passes and it's a goal. It was through to Watkins, who I'm not sure if he dinks it over the keeper or if it sort of came off the keeper and just fell to Bailey. But as you've said, when Forest see that press coming, they know that they're in a good position at the moment. They know they probably do have the upper hand in this game. They are playing better at that time. They are pushing on. They just got to be sensible there and just get rid of it, because you know Villa are very, very aggressive pressers, and you can't risk that away from home against a side of Villa's quality.
No, absolutely not. But for Nottingham Forest, 26 games played, 24 points, one game played more than Luton Town, who are behind them in 17th. In 18th, and Nottingham Forest are 17th. They're in a real dogfight coming up, and they really desperately need to get some points. And for Aston Villa, the next games, oh my God, they got Luton away, as we know, which is never an easy game. They've got Ajax home and away and Spurs at home sandwiched in between. There's a massive fixtures for both sets of teams coming forward, because Aston Villa needed to try and get top 4, and Nottingham Forest needed to try and stay away from the relegation zone. A bit like Crystal Palace, who picked up a fantastic win, a 3-0 win at home against Burnley in Oliver Glasner's first game in charge. And before we come to the game, what do you think of the appointment of Glasner?
It seems like a good appointment, quite an ambitious appointment. I don't think many were probably expecting it, especially after, obviously, the way that Roy Hodgson stepped back into the club, and there was a lot of been a lot of talk from the fans recently about how the club is being run, how they're trying to progress things, and this seems like a step in the right direction. He obviously had a decent spell at Frankfurt, won them the Europa League, which was an incredible achievement, and yeah, I think it suits Palace well for the position that they're in. I think it's quite bold of him, I think, to go to someone like Crystal Palace, maybe where he knows he's not going to get a lot of investment. Historically, they haven't been big spenders in the transfer market, but he clearly sees it as a position where he can do well and he can get the best out of that side. And I think we've seen his tactics from the off almost. He's playing a 3-back with wing backs, which we definitely would have expected, especially from those Frankfurt days. I remember it must have been Filip Kostic playing left wing back in that Frankfurt system, who was probably their best player. So I think we were expecting them to play a 3/5 back, however you want to call it, and they did that from the off. And it'll be interesting to see how he sort of puts players into his system, whether Eze is going to be playing in one of the roles just behind the striker, in where we saw Ayew sort of play this weekend, or if he'll be dropping straight into centre mid, and the same for Elise. Where will Elise fit? I imagine he'll be one of those two behind the striker. Can't imagine him dropping as deep as centre mid. So I think that role could really suit him. And as well as those wing backs, I think that's the key part of the system is Nunez. I don't think he's played wing back much, but he seems to suit it pretty well. Tyrick Mitchell, on the other hand, is someone we see more as a conventional fullback. He's very solid defensively, maybe not the most exciting going forward, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets the best out of these players in this new system and potentially in these new positions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a really good appointment. I think he'll give him a new manager bounce for the remainder of the season. I think Crystal Palace will avoid relegation. I think next season will be incredibly exciting with a transfer window behind him and some really exciting players. If he can keep a hold of Elise and Eze, I think it could be incredibly exciting, especially with France developing as these came on in this game and did really well. I think with Elise and his injury issues, I think there might be a hesitation from other clubs to try and poach him until he proves himself to be fit and available for a whole season. A bit like Pedro Neto at Wolves has this season. I think he's more likely to get a move. But I think it's incredibly exciting and it allows for Palace fans to dream and have a long-term vision. It'd be interesting to see at the not the next season, but the season after that, when he's been in charge for about 15 months, if he still has that defensive solidarity that Roy Hodgson has instilled into the side, because it's all well and good attacking really well and scoring goals, but what will really hamper Crystal Palace is the defence if they can't get it right, because I think behind, Chris Richards, Mark A and Joachim Anderson, who I assume will be the first choice three centre-backs. Behind them, they don't have a huge amount of depth, but of course they can sort that out in the summer transfer window. But I think in Glasner's first game in charge, I think he couldn't have hoped for a better result. And I think he was massively helped by the fact that Josh Brownhill got sent off. And I'll be honest, I think, Trafford, I think he stitched his teammate up massively there. I think Brownhill should have probably looked over his shoulder once before he did and saw that Lerma was on him. But I think in the moment, Brownhill just completely panicked and was just like, I need to bring him down. And then not realising the situation that he was in and the fact that he was about to give away a foul, but he was about to get himself sent off. I think this was pretty obviously a red card. No complaint from yourself?
No complaints at all. The two words I've got written down after that are just game over. Away from home against a side who are probably, I think it's fair to say, better than them. A more sort of, what's the word? Not better in quality, but I think a lot more solid, and you would expect to win this game. So yeah, to go a man down away from home against Palace, it was game over from there really. And I don't think Brownhill had any complaints either. He was almost walking off before the ref even pulled out the red.
Yeah, absolutely. But then they did hold out Burnley for a long period of time, but it took the 68th minute for Crystal Palace to break them down. And then when they did, it was a very, very poor way for Burnley to concede. Yeah, I think Muniz, whether he knew it or not, he really distracted Assignon pretty well, because Richards was completely free on the back post. And by the fact that he made the run across his man, it meant that Richards was completely free on the back post. He got his goal. Ayew then got another, and Mateta finished it off with the penalty. I did think it was a bit of a soft penalty on França, though, I will be honest. I think maybe he went down a bit easy. Maybe if that was another player, it wouldn't have been given. Did you think it was a penalty, Toby?
Yeah, it did feel like it was one of those where he was looking for it, but I think it was probably a penalty, even if it was soft. But luckily, I suppose there's not going to be too much of a debate, as it was 2-0 and Palace were all over them at that point.
Yeah, and I do have to say, I know we've been touching around the subject, trying to give Burnley fans a little crumb of hope, but I think it's official. Sheffield United and Burnley are now down. Do you agree?
Yeah, there's not much hope, I don't think. I think both clubs will be anticipating the Championship next season. It doesn't feel too far off. They're obviously only 7 points, I think, off. Oh no, it's more than that now, isn't it? They are 7 points off Luton, who are still in the relegation zone, but with the change in Everton's points deduction, as I'm sure we're going to be touching on later when we discuss their game, that they are now, I believe, 11 points off, which I think is, even if they were playing better than they are, is too much, I think, to claim back at this point of the season. Yeah, so you imagine it's pretty much confirmed that they'll be going down at this point.
Yeah, and to be honest, I really hope that you get a point deduction, because that's the only way I'm going to make a comeback in the quiz. To be fair, it'd be nice if you were cheating. It'll make me feel better about myself in general, and my lack of ball knowledge, as I've shown in the quiz. If you don't know what we're on about, and if you're new, it is the Football Fellowship halftime quiz. We're doing guess a player. We're doing two each. One is a guess a player based on the clubs that they play for, and the second one is guess a player based on their teammates. Toby, what are the scores?
It is currently 34 points to myself and 21 to Mev. That's after 6 rounds out of a possible 10 is what we normally do. So still 4 rounds left to go, and everything could change with some big 5-pointers.
It absolutely will not change. But to be honest, I think now it is just a bit of formality, and maybe, you'll be in there with the bottle jobs along with Chelsea if you do bottle it from here.
Exactly.
But as you are leading, Tobes, would you like to go first, or would you like to go second?
I will go second this week. I think I went first last week, so yeah, let's go second. So I'll give you your guess the player based on clubs first.
Sure. I can't even remember what happened last week. I blocked this part of the episode out. But yeah, go on. I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, so your first club for 5 points is Inter Milan.
Inter Milan. Okay, this could be loads of players. Let's go for Philippe Coutinho.
It is not Coutinho, but
okay,
it's a good answer. I like that. Your second club for 4 points is Ajax.
Ajax and Inter Milan. Trying to think. First name that came to mind was Ivan Perisic, but I don't think he's played for Ajax because he's Croatian. No, I don't see how. And I think he's around Germany. So Ajax and Inter Milan. Is there? And I'm trying to think of Dutch players. De Vrij comes to mind now. It could be someone older. Let's go for. I'm trying to think someone. I didn't even play for them. Let's go for Mateo Kovacic. He didn't play for Ajax or Inter.
It is not Kovacic. He did play for Inter.
He did play. Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah. I think I don't know if it was on loan from Real Madrid or if they signed him, but yeah, he definitely played for Inter.
Okay.
This is why I'm stuck. I don't know which club to give you here.
Sure.
I'm gonna go for the first one I wrote down when I did this first time, and your third club for 3 points is Brentford.
Right. Okay. Come on. So my head went to Damsgaard because he's kind of a forgotten man. But where did he? Oh, I think he was at Sampdoria. I don't think he was at Inter Milan, but he could have been at Ajax. Who else? Mark Flecken? Where was he? Where did Brentford sign him from? No idea. Okay. He did come straight to mind. I should probably just go for him. Yeah, go on. Let's go for Damsgaard.
It is not Damsgaard, unfortunately.
Okay.
Your fourth club for 2 points, and where I think you'll be getting it here, is Tottenham Hotspur.
Oh, no way. Is it Christian Eriksen?
It is Christian Eriksen for 2 points. Very nice, mate. Well
done. He was in my head, but I don't know why I didn't say him.
It's forgotten when he was at Brentford. It was such a strange spell. There was loads of hype, and then obviously he got the move to United. It felt like I almost forgot he was at Brentford when I was looking at this, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last club obviously would have been Man United, as he is at the moment.
Yeah. God, Inter Milan, Ajax. I just couldn't think of any. Oh, I'm so disappointed. I should have got that sooner, but that's all right. I will take a 2 points. Are you ready for yours?
I certainly am.
Well, your first club for 5 points is Fulham.
Fulham. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Let's think of some journeymen who have been at Fulham at some point. Adama Traore came straight to my mind, but I don't think Fulham would be first on the list if it was him. Who else have we got? Obviously players like Berbatov, but we've had him, so I don't think you do that again.
I'm not allowed to do that again.
Dempsey. Yeah. Someone like John Arne Riise, Konchesky, it's that sort of era comes to mind. Let's go for John Arne Riise.
It is not, but a very good guess. Very good guess. Your second club for 4 points is Aston Villa.
It could be Adama Traore. Fulham and Villa. Oh, who else has done that little path? I don't think Konchesky's been at Villa. I think he was at West Ham. Fulham and Villa. I can't. There's not many that are coming to mind at the moment. Maybe a keeper. Is Friedel ever? Oh, Fulham. No, I'm getting. I was going to say Van der Sar or Peter Schmeichel, but I think Van der Sar was at Fulham and Schmeichel was at Villa, so I'm not going to go for that. I'm going to go for Adama Traore.
It is not Adama Traore, but another good guess. Your third club for 3 points is Chelsea.
Chelsea. Fulham, Villa, and Chelsea. Who could this be? Fulham and Villa and Chelsea, I feel like are my best bets. John Terry's obviously done Chelsea and Villa, but I don't think he's done any time at Fulham. Someone like Tammy Abraham may have had a loan at Fulham at some point. Who else could be there? Chelsea and Villa. Not many are coming to mind. Chukwuemeka, but he hasn't played long enough. Let's go for Tammy Abraham.
It is not Tammy Abraham. I don't think he's done Fulham.
No, I didn't think so.
No. Your fourth club for 2 points is Arsenal.
Arsenal. The first one that's come to my mind is Callum Chambers, because he's done Fulham, Villa and Arsenal. But there's no way he's ever done Chelsea. Who could this be? Arsenal and Chelsea. It's obviously Ashley Cole, but he would never have done Villa and Fulham. There's so many here. People like Giroud, Jorginho, Petr Cech. Who else have we got?
Think a little bit older.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure Steve Sidwell, I think, played for Arsenal. And I'm pretty sure he's played for all the rest. Or is it Stephen Ireland? No, I think it is Steve Sidwell. Let's go for Steve Sidwell.
It is Steve Sidwell.
Oh, yes. I'm well happy with that.
Yeah, that was amazing, mate. The way you just plucked him out of nowhere, that was very well done. Your last club would have been Reading.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I reckon I would have got it off Reading.
Yeah, that's why I put them last. But yeah, very well done.
I don't know if it's Sidwell, if it's another one of these weird players that played for Arsenal. But I feel like Steve Sidwell never played a league game for Arsenal, unless I've completely made that up. I've just got a feeling that's
Did he
something I
not?
read.
I'm not sure.
I think he definitely played for Arsenal. I might have just.
He started his career at Arsenal.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and I think he was one of those players who's like, he played in like the cup or something. Obviously, when he was a lot younger, but.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he was at Arsenal 01 to 03, Reading 03 to 07, Chelsea 07 08, At Villa 08-11, Fulham 11-14. To be fair, I also played for like Stoke and Brighton, but yeah, I thought those five would have given it to you. Yeah, proper journeyman.
Nice. I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
I'm ready for
are you
my.
ready?
Oh, This is the harder one. Yeah, go on.
It is the tough one. So, your first former teammate is Micah Richards.
Micah Richards. So, he is Leeds, Man City, Fiorentina, Aston Villa, and I think he went down with Aston Villa to the Championship, and I think that was it. Because now that I think about it, he's only 35. He's younger than James Milner, funnily enough.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think. Could be a random guess here. Who played for the? I think you might have, based on my last few points, I think you go more recent. So let's go for Christian Benteke.
It is not Christian Benteke. Your second former teammate for 4 points is João Felix.
João Felix. Okay. Again, so he is Benfica, Atleti. He was on loan to Chelsea. Went to Barca. Okay. I feel like I know these two players' career paths pretty well. So who's overlapping João Felix? So obviously someone quite old to play with Richards and Felix. In England, perhaps? Or was it oh god, okay. Might be, so let's go for... Oh no, I was going to say Gundogan, but it won't be Gundogan with Richards. Let someone... Two very weird players. I'll be honest, I don't know, and I don't want to throw a guess out there, so I'm just going to say pass on this one.
Sure, yeah. And your third teammate for 3 points is Christian Eriksen.
Eriksen, okay. Fun enough. Ajax, Inter, Ajax, Spurs, Inter, Brentford, United. God, okay. Micah Richards was a while back. Eriksen's now. João Felix is very recently. Oh my god. I feel like I should know this player. I really feel like I should know.
It's quite a random selection of teammates. But...
Yeah. Oh my god, they can't be English. There's no way there's English. Unless it's Spurs and Chelsea. Who's played for Spurs, Chelsea? Spurs. No, it can't be Kyle Walker. Don't have a clue. It's not. I don't have a clue yet.
Any names floating about?
No. I don't know. No, I'm gonna have to pass again. I just can't think of anyone.
That's fine. Yeah, I think this might be a big help. Your fourth teammate for 2 points is Danny Ings.
Danny Ings. Southampton. Liverpool.
I've just remembered how many clubs Ings has actually played for, and I feel like it's maybe not as much as a help as I thought it would be.
West Ham. Southampton, Liverpool, West Ham, Burnley. Did he go on loan anywhere? No idea. Okay. Jesus Christ, I'm so stumped. I'm trying to think. I'm also trying to talk with my thoughts.
I'll give you a clue for all of these teammates. It's not anyone that they currently play for.
Who does Micah Richards currently play for? Sky Sports.
Yeah, like Ings, think a bit older. Eriksen, think a bit older, and Felix is Don't think too recently. Then.
Oh my god!
I'll give you another clue as well. One of these clubs is a foreign club, but that's it. The rest are English clubs.
Well, it can be for Danny Ings. I'm gonna have to pass again. I've got no idea for the sake of viewer
Your
retention.
final teammate is Sean Longstaff.
Sean Longstaff. He's only been at Newcastle. Who's at Newcastle at the moment? Who on earth is at Newcastle at the moment? Hang on. What? Hang on, Newcastle. Pope Dubravka Carrier? No, Pope Dubravka Carriers. Trippier, Livramento. Burn. Who's the other left back? Centre Botman. Matt Ritchie.
You're just going to go through the whole Newcastle squad.
Shar. Lascelles. Bruno Guimaraes.
You got to think, yeah, so Danny Ings, early Danny Ings. Christian Eriksen at his peak, probably, I think it's fair to say. Micah Richards at his much beloved team. And Felix where he got his big money move to.
Oh, it is Trippier.
It is Trippier for a point. Very nice, mate.
I hate myself. Oh, God.
Yeah, Micah Richards, he started his career at City. It was there, Micah Richards. Yeah, João Felix at Atletico for a few seasons. Danny Ings at Burnley. Christian Eriksen at Spurs. And Longstaff at Newcastle.
Yeah. Oh, for God's sake.
Point.
Oh, yeah, not so cheeky. Yeah. Oh, I should have got that so much earlier. Okay. You ready for yours?
Oh, yes.
Right. So your first former teammate is Yannick Bassey.
Bassey, God, he has played for so many teams. He played for like Plymouth, Palace, Everton, Villa. Let's write the big teams down. Palace, Villa. No idea where he is now. I think he might have gone to Turkey or something like that. So it's going to be an obscure one. Maybe when he was at Everton. Someone who was at Everton maybe at the similar time. Gareth Barry.
It is not Gareth Barry.
I thought you were going to say it's Barry then. I was like, oh,
it is not. The reason why I kind of hesitated was because your next former teammate is Gareth Barry.
Oh, no way. Okay. So Barry's obviously done City, West Brom, Everton as well. So a good chance it could be someone from Everton. Maybe. It could be Barry at West Brom, Bassey at Everton, and that could make it maybe Lukaku.
It is not Lukaku. Funnily enough, Lukaku was the one I started doing.
Really?
On another one. Yeah, I started doing Lukaku, and I was like, I think we might have done it, and I wasn't sure, so I decided not to go for him. So that's very weird.
Nice.
Are you spying on me, Tobes? But yeah, your third former teammate is Jake Livermore.
Livermore. Okay. So we've got Hull. Did Livermore play for Spurs? Or was that Huddleston? I'm not sure. Livermore. Is Livermore ever United as well? I think he was at West Brom too, Livermore, wasn't he? Or I think I'm just getting so many teams mixed up now. Livermore. But where else has Barry been? Everton, West Brom, City. That's all I can think of for Gareth Barry. Oh, he was at Villa as well, Gareth Barry. So many of the same teams seem to be popping up. Who could it be? I'm thinking maybe United for Livermore. I'm thinking... that would have been quite early, wouldn't it? Was Livermore even at United? I'm just overthinking it now. Let's go... I have no idea. Fellaini.
You're going to pass? Fellaini. No, it is not Marouane Fellaini. God, I don't even think he's anywhere near the same time as Bassey at Everton. But yeah,
No.
your next player, former teammate for 2 points, is Kolo Touré.
Oh, this is another one who's been at so many teams. Celtic, Liverpool, City, and Arsenal. Okay, right. Let's have a good think about this. So someone, maybe Liverpool. Could it be? No, I don't think it can be James Milner. I'm thinking Kolo Touré at Liverpool or Arsenal, I think. Who could that entail?
Who are you thinking for the other players?
I don't really know. I feel like I'm a bit all over the place. I was just thinking Theo Walcott, but I don't think he would work. Someone at Liverpool. I'm thinking James Milner. I feel like is a pretty safe shout. Who else could it be though? Nobody else is coming to mind, to be honest. Let's go for it. It's a safe answer. James Milner.
It is not James Milner.
No.
And your last former teammate for 1 point is Iker Casillas.
Where the hell has that come from? So it's got to be Real Madrid then. Someone who has done all of those. Oh. So it's someone who's been in the Prem, I imagine. These are a lot of Prem players. And done Real Madrid. Someone like...
So what are you thinking for Jake Livermore again?
Who the English... I have no idea. I think he's done Hull, United,
Yeah.
West Brom, and Spurs.
Yeah.
That's all I've got for him. And has done Real Madrid.
Maybe think about Spurs for Jake Livermore.
So it can't be Luka Modric. Spurs and Real Madrid. Okay, so that's what it's gonna be. So who would? Oh, is it? No, it can't be that.
And has also done Arsenal. No, it's not Gareth Bale. And has also done Arsenal with Kolo Touré.
What? I'm so confused. Arsenal, Spurs, and Real Madrid. God, I'm doing awfully here.
And he's also played.
I think I've got... No, I don't think I have got it.
Who do you think it is? But this is not your answer.
Is it Adebayor?
It is Adebayor.
Yeah.
You can have the point for that.
There. So thank you.
No, that's fine.
So what was it? Real Madrid, Arsenal, Spurs, Gareth Barrett, City, and who was?
Yeah.
When did he play? When did he play with Bassey?
He played with Bassey at Crystal Palace.
Ah, nice. I forgot Adebayor was at Palace.
I think it was like 16. I think it was him and Benteke up top with Bassey down one side. Yeah. So he's also with like Joe Ward, James Tompkins, funny enough.
Nice.
Who are still there now. Yeah. Proper journeyman.
Nice. That's a very given point. So I appreciate it. I was struggling. That was a really good one. I liked that.
No, I would have thought because it's like you've done a lot of Premier League clubs and then Real Madrid, and it's like I think of only one when I think of that journey in my head. I think of Adebayor because he's just such a weird career path. But yeah. No. So what are the scores?
3 points each in that one. So it is now 37 to 24 after 7 games played. 3 left to go and lots more points to be played for.
Absolutely. And a side who are very, very happy, not because of reasons on the pitch, but because of it, Everton, who have got their points deduction, 10 points, reduced down to 6, which was the news earlier today. And that means they're now in 15th place in the Premier League on 25 points, 5 points off the relegation zone. However, Luton Town do have a game in hand. But how much of a plus is it to have 4 points returned to their points tally, Toby?
Yeah, especially in a relegation scrap. That's absolutely huge. That could be the difference between them staying up this season. They are now 5 points off Luton. Luton do have a game in hand, but it's a huge perk, and it's a big boost, I think, for the club as well, which will I think probably you'd imagine it sort of roll them into playing a little bit better because they have been on a fairly poor run recently, had a really good start to the season. We were saying without the points deduction they could have been sort of in Europe, but that form has dropped quite dramatically in the last few weeks. So yeah, it's come at the right time. It will probably kickstart them a little bit more, and I think they now definitely have enough to be staying up.
Yeah, but you do have to still take into account the fact that they do have another charge and they need to be given points deduction for that. And then obviously I imagine that if it's on the harsher side, Everton will try and appeal that one as well. But just fingers crossed, all this gets sorted out before the end of the season so we all know what's going on and the teams at the bottom know what to play for. Oh, also, at Nottingham Forest, you also do have a same charge to Everton. So still lots to be discovered before the end of the season. But yeah, the sooner rather than later, better, I think, is for everyone. But let's talk about the game because it was Brighton 1, Everton 1. Brighton, I think, were the better side on the day. However, they did find themselves 1-0 down thanks to a fantastic strike by Jared Branthwaite. And I think, there's been a lot of talk about him for England at the moment for the Euros coming up in the summer. What are your thoughts on that?
That's not a bad shout, to be honest. I think he's so good. I think he is quality. He's got everything you want in a sort of modern-day centre-back. He's tall, strong, quick, very, very good on the ball, looks super confident, especially for his age. And I think if Everton can't hold on to him, there's going to be so much interest from big clubs, and I think he could be one of the next sort of big money moves for defenders. Looking at 100 million, I think at this rate, to be honest, he's playing that well. So I don't think it's a bad shout for him for England. I think maybe if players like Gahey are still injured, obviously Ben White doesn't seem to be too involved in the squad, so there could certainly be a place for him. It's not a bad shout, maybe just a bit early given his age. Might be too much of a risk. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, I think to the moment where, he got absolutely done by Haaland. And I know, like I said, when that happened on the podcast, that, Lewis Dunk had a very similar thing happen to him. But I just think if you're thinking about England are trying to win it right here and now, I do think that, you could take, in Southgate's last season, a Lewis Dunk, a Maguire, why not? And just try and play the players who are established at the international level, go on and win it. And I think Branthwaite, post the Euros, is going to have a great shout for the England squad, and I think rightly so, he should be in it. But I think just the Euros is a little bit too early. But then we should talk about the moment that changed the game and gave Brighton a bit of a dampener, and that was Billy Gilmour's red card. And for me, I think we've talked about red cards a lot in this episode. I think this one was definitely a red card. Is that how you saw it as well?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Gilmour probably knew it as well. There's a few complaints, but not many. It was a reckless challenge. 10 minutes left to go as well. It could have given Everton 3 points at the end of the day. But following it, Brighton did very, very well to sort of claw it back. Kept playing, kept pushing on. Everton was still sitting back, sort of trying to protect that lead despite Brighton with 10 men. So they did well following it, and it could have really ended the game for them. But yeah, ultimately a red card, I reckon. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was absolutely a red card, and I think it's one where they can't have too many complaints. You don't expect them to appeal it because I think it just was a red card. It was just a little bit higher than the ankle, which meant that it had to be a red card. And then moving on to the next game, which was Bournemouth 0, Manchester City 1. However, I think we expected Man City to win this game. But Bournemouth gave them a really, really good game, and I think maybe Bournemouth will be unlucky that they didn't get something out of this game. Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, they played really, really well. Not too surprising given how Bournemouth have played at times this season. They look very, very well drilled. They look like they've got a lot of talent in their side and they can give anyone a game, and they certainly did in this case. They racked up an XG of around 1. They had, I think, around 13 shots for the whole game. Very, very good attacking performance, and they did very well in restricting City in a lot of aspects. I don't think Haaland had his best game again, and I don't think City overall had their best game again. And at the moment, I'm not sure if it's just because this podcast is hosted by an Arsenal and a Liverpool fan, but I think out of the three, City don't seem to be playing as well at the moment as the other two. That would be, I suppose, more of a concern for their title challenge if they didn't have so much talent and so much experience in that squad. Doesn't make them any less favourites at all that they're playing poorly, just maybe puts more belief in my mind as a hopeful Arsenal fan that we could go at the end of March and beat them, and I think Liverpool could probably do the same with the way that City are playing at the moment. Just doesn't feel quite right, and it feels like it's getting a bit later in the season for them to really click into gear and play their best football.
Don't you worry, mate. They're playing Man United next weekend in the derby. They'll absolutely smash them. Their confidence will be high, and then they'll be Liverpool at Anfield, beat you at home against Arsenal, and then, we'll all just be here with our thumbs in our mouth, just being like, oh, come on, what the hell? But yeah, they'll be absolutely fine. Don't you worry about it. They'll be there and thereabouts. They live rent-free in Liverpool and Arsenal fans' heads because of what they've done in the recent years. So I don't think there's any point doubting City. But I do agree, they look the worst, but that doesn't mean that they are the worst. Moving on then to Wolverhampton Wanderers 1, Sheffield United 0. And I think this was very expected in the fact that we expected Wolverhampton Wanderers to win this game, but I think it was quite unexpected in the fact that I thought Sheffield United were actually the better team on the day. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, certainly in fairly big chunks of the game. I think they got forward really well. They countered pretty well against Wolves, who I think were a lot more progressive and a lot more attacking than we sort of see in recent games, which is obviously expected, playing Sheffield United, who you know are going to sit back, are a much weaker side. And Sheffield United took full advantage of that. I think McAtee had some really, really good breaks. He looked fantastic in this game. He was playing sort of alongside Brewster, and he was really, really pushing Wolves' backline and trying to take advantage of that space that they had left behind. And they created a number of chances. They just could not get those final touches and those final little passes to create real goal-scoring opportunities. They sort of fell at the final hurdle. But on another day, it could have been Wolves' game to get a really important 3 points. But ultimately, it was Wolves who got just as equally an important 3 points and puts them up to 8th now, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it is. Gary O'Neill doing a fantastic job at Wolverhampton Wanderers. But I do agree with you. I think that, Sheffield United could have got something out of this game. But again, I've got to the point now of cynicism where I just think it's too little too late. Where was his performance early on in the season? Where was Ryan Brewster given opportunities early on in the season? Where was the whole team fighting like they are now? Because they absolutely could have won this game. And if they played like this every game, they could have definitely got more points than the 13. But at this point in the season, I don't think there's any point. I think they're down. I just want to ask, did you see the incidents between Sousa and Robinson for Sheffield United where they were squaring up? A bit of a Kieran Dyer, Lee Bauer situation. Did you see it?
I saw stuff on social media about it, but I didn't actually watch any of the videos. What actually happened?
Well, to be fair, it was a bit kind of not focused on, but it was kind of like there but not there, and it was just Susan Robinson, I think, just squaring up after an incident, and they were just going, you should have been doing better. And I think they were just, having a go at each other as like teammates would, but I think it is one where neither of them was stepping down, and it was getting a bit aggy, and I thought they were about to start fighting each other on the pitch. But to be fair, after the game, Chris Wilder said he didn't like to see it. They're both they've both been talked to about it. I just thought, I thought it would have made the game a bit more entertaining personally, but I guess for Sheffield United, that would have been the cherry on the cake of what's been, a pretty rubbish season. So, nothing at the end of it, a bit of just fisticuffs, but, would have been something to say, talk about.
Yeah, a talking point at the very least, and a bit of entertainment. But now for Wolves, very, very exciting. The Football Fellowship podcast's second team, I think it's fair to say, the amount we talk about how impressed we are at times with Wolves. But yeah, the next 6 games could be huge and could really get them in a fantastic position. They've got Newcastle, Fulham, West Ham and Bournemouth all in their next 6 games, those sort of teams in and around them. And I think if they can play well, pick up a few victories, they could really be knocking on the door of the European spots. For now, at the end of the season, I think they have Arsenal, City and Liverpool in their last 5 games, so a very tough end. But if they can keep playing and keep going, they are certainly good enough at the moment to be overtaking teams like Newcastle and Brighton, who seem to be on fairly inconsistent runs.
Yeah, absolutely. And there could be massive 6-pointers. And for all we know, from the start of the season, we're saying Wolves are going to struggle, and then to the point where we are now, 25, 26 games of the season, saying Wolves giving the chance for Europe, and actually they're playing incredibly well. We're really happy with what we're seeing, and they've got some fantastic players. I think massive credit to Gary O'Neill, and maybe an outside shout for manager of the season.
I think if they get European football, he's got to be up there, because I don't think anyone had any expectation of that, especially at the start of the season, given some of the problems that Wolves have been in. They obviously lost their manager. He just seemed to sort of step in out of nowhere and completely like change and revolutionise the way Wolves are playing, similar to how sort of we saw Emery last season and Emery this season. I think if he can get Wolves up into even 6th or 7th, I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility. Certainly should be on at least the short list.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see from the outside, because who knows, if Gary O'Neill was a manager from Europe with an exotic sounding name, maybe if he was called Unai Emery, then, you know, he could have been talked about a lot more on this Wolves side. I think could have been talked about a lot more than they have to. But we will see on next week's episode how they do against Newcastle, as with the rest of the sides, as we will be here next week for you guys to watch and catch us on the Football Fellowship podcast. Thank you very much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and a subscribe. It really helps us out. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, give us 5 stars, answer our questionnaire, let us know what you think, and recommend us to all your friends. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you in the next one.